What's up, everybody? Today we are going to talk about blackfishing. Let me sip my tea. Actually, it's water, but I'm trying to keep it clear because I have to have a clear mind when I'm speaking about this. This issue is multifaceted, it's supercharged, and it could be very easy to fall into a lot of loopholes when you're discussing this topic and put yourself in the worst place. Now, I'm just going to preface this by saying that I'm a black woman. I do have a plethora of friends from different communities, but I'm still I'm friends with mainly black people of the African diaspora, whether they are African Americans or Africans. And so my perspective is really guided by that experience. However, I also have tasted a little bit of the other side, speaking to other people, non-black people, and how they perceive this particular issue, and how they may even have people or relatives who kind of perpetuate this thing that we call blackfishing. So to sum it up, first off, we're gonna just not sum it up, but like to define it. I would consider blackfishing to be kind of like the contemporary form of blackface. Now, historically in the US, particularly in Hollywood and in media, blackface has been used a lot to perpetuate stereotypes of what specific black people are like, black men or black women are like, and they usually play a role in society, but they also impact the laws that come out of those stereotypes that people believe in. And so this is the link where, those stereotypes and those social conversations we're having also have negative or positive impacts on the particular community that we're portraying. And usually when it came down to blackface, they were portraying black people in negative ways, with negative stereotypes, to further justify, treating black people as different or as inferior to whiteness. So just to put that in a historical context, let's put that aside. Now, blackfishing today, I think a lot of us would define this differently based on our own personal experiences. Some of us might just say it just happens to be a girl on Instagram who tans, who wears like darker, extremely significant darker skin tone makeup, and she just wears the curly hair, but it's not really her hair. Basically, racially ambiguous blackness. And then there are some cases where there are white people, non-black people, particularly going to the extremes of, trying to make sure that their skin is super dark. And at that point, I think it's very
obvious that it's not clear what is happening.
And I don't mean this in any kind of disrespect or any kind of way. I just want to talk about this topic because I feel like it's very important for us to keep in check with one another. First within the black community, but also as a human race, to figure out what's going on and what this might be a big indicator of. So I put some things in my notes on my phone so that I can keep myself on track. Let me just log into that real quick. The first thing is, I just want to put it out there. There is no way to justify blackfishing. I mean, whoever you are, wherever you are, whether you're on Instagram, you're on YouTube, you're in other spaces, or you choose to, do that outside, the thing about it is that first off, you're lying to yourself. That's the biggest issue, that the biggest impact, the negative impact that it can have on you. We already know what it feels like to lie to ourselves and to betray ourselves, to betray the truth. When you're hiding something, it's very hard to upkeep that lie. So the first thing I would like to say to anybody who's out there that's been accused of blackfishing or that agrees, and says, I have done some things, to make myself look like I'm black, but I was just doing it for fun, or I was experimenting, or I like myself looking like this. The first thing I would say is, there is no way to justify that to a black person, particularly a black woman, because we also notice that this issue happens to be a woman's issue in some kind of way, because I'm not seeing a lot of like non-black males perpetuating this blackfishing system. It's mainly a woman's issue. And so we have to figure out why, first of all, it's a women's issue. Why does it happen that it's white women, wearing makeup and wearing wigs, or not even white women, but some videos that I've seen of like Asian women, women of Asian descent, either Southeast or West. And it's very interesting to see, how this is very prevalent in our sector of the world, in femininity. I would say, not even women, but just in femininity. So first thing I would say is, this is not good. Blackfishing is not good. It's not acceptable. There is no way to justify it, to make anybody understand it. It looks like, it looks offensive. And it could be taken the wrong way as soon as you present it to other people that are of that race. Now, the issue with that is just, you know, there are some black people who are like, I'm cool, I don't have an issue with it because this is not impacting me directly, which is okay, you know, which is like, you know, justifiable, and it makes sense, it's logical. But then at the same time, we also have to remember the historical precedent that blackface has presented throughout our history, especially in the US, where sometimes, you know, art imitates life. And so when you have a distorted idea of what it means to be black, specifically black women, or a specific kind of black femininity being portrayed in the media that may not be rooted in authentic lived experiences, then there's an issue there. And not to say that, oh, you can quantify or define blackness, because you could try to do that your whole life. Blackness looks and feels differently for every individual that is a member of that community. However, if you are not a member of the community and you take on the responsibility of representing a particular form of black femininity, there's an issue if you are not doing the research that you need to do to perpetuate that stereotype or that look. And then there's a disconnect, because then we all know you didn't live that experience, but you want to portray yourself as if you are. So it's a multifaceted issue, it's packed, but I don't want to vilify, you know, people who are accused of doing blackface, because just as much as we look at them like, how dare you, there's also a side of like, we need to look internally to figure out, first of all, one, why is it that blackness is only quantified based on the visual perspective of being a black woman? Now, part of me wasn't super mad when I saw some of these videos or pictures or Instagrammers that were being caught up in the news, because I was like, they're just scratching the surface of what it means to be black. Being black is not only about your skin and your hair and the makeup that you do. There's so much more that we bring to life through our spirits internally that speaks so much more volume and of value than just a look. But at the same time, I cannot ignore the fact that the look can also impact the way we see ourselves within our communities. So I'm just saying, I'm not vilifying anybody who's been accused of doing it. I'm not vilifying anybody who loves to tan, who likes the look. But I would like to ask you to reconsider, why is it that you feel the need to change yourself so drastically, and the implications that that might have on other communities, people outside of yourself. Now, some other people have arguments based on, let me look right here, I take notes on this. Some people can do the counter argument of like black women wearing wigs and wearing makeup, black women bleaching. There's so many different topics out there, but the truth is with that situation, there is quite a difference. Now, if you're a black person, particularly historically and in modern society, we all still know that the standard of beauty is still whiteness. Now, there's been a big unleashing in Instagram and social media, you know, melanin.
Oh man, I don't know what that was.
Anyway, so there's been a huge movement in like, you know, your melanin is everything, melanin goddess, you know, hashtag melanin, you know, like everything, you know, queen, Nubian queen. There's been this big movement online to predicate and to bring up black women in society and to say like, we're bomb, we're beautiful, we're gorgeous. But you see, that's a counter and it's a resistance to the status quo, which is still predominantly like whiteness. And if it's not whiteness that's beautiful, then on the bottom of that, in the middle layer, the buffer area, is blackness but with a racial ambiguous feeling. And I think that's what's happening with the white women who, or non-black women who've been like putting on makeup to look black. It's like they play into that particular coloristic effect that the black society has had to deal with for a long time. It's like, you're black but you're just not quite fully like, you know, you don't have the rough parts of being black. You have the good hair. You have the good features. So therefore your blackness is a little bit more acceptable and it could permeate into different spaces. And the issue with that is, first of all, when you're talking about people of mixed race, they happen to be members of the black community, and that's an issue that we need to speak on further, a dialogue we need to have, or discourse, to talk about how to make space for all of us within the umbrella of blackness. Because God knows blackness is amazing, but there's just so much happening in our society that's changing what it means every day. Now, if you're not a member of the community, but the way you present yourself also influences the way we define ourselves within our community, there's a problem. There's a problem there, because then little black girls are looking and like, oh well, this is what I'm seeing online, this is how I'm supposed to look, but like I don't look like this, my mommy doesn't look like this. Does that mean that I'm not beautiful? Does that mean that I don't deserve likes? Does that mean I don't deserve followers? And so it turns into like, what are the larger implications of pretending to be something that you're not, and how that doesn't even affect you but really affects like the community that you're presenting yourself as. That's the scary part of blackfishing. There's no way to control it. There's no way to say, oh, once this person does this, then we can control how people are going to view this community. You can't say for sure how it's going to happen. Some people might see it and know right away, like, this is blackfishing. There's some people who are going to be like, nah, this chick is black, like she's, you know, she's a queen, like, you know, she's part of the community. The issue with that is then we all get confused. We don't know what it means. I'm okay with the definitions of blackness being expanded when it's coming from a valid lived experience within that community. But when it's coming from outside, I'm more skeptical. And for good reason. Historically, we need to be skeptical of whenever people are not within the community are defining what it means to be us. Now, what it means to be us is also very complex. It's not just one thing, which is why when you get into like, oh, well, like she's not black, or like, you know, this ain't it, or like people believing that that person is black. The issue is like, again, like I said, blackness is just not makeup and the look and the skin. It's not just that. Those are just the things, the phenotypes you can see outside, but there's so much more to being black than that. And so the issue becomes like, if you argue against the blackfishers, then you're kind of basing your argument off the fact that blackness is just a look. You get what I'm saying? It's kind of like a horrible situation. Either way, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But at the same time, I would still say it's an important issue to critique, because even though they may not be representing what it means to be black fully, for some people who are not members of the black community, that's all they see, and therefore they make connections immediately. Okay, this is what black women are like, this is what they do. And the problem on top of that is most of the women that we're seeing on Instagram are commodifying black femininity to make money, you know, to do ads. And so like, and some people could say, what's the difference between them doing it and actual black women? Because, you know, we're still trying to figure out what those definitions mean. I feel like, again, I'm just gonna base it off of the fact that I would rather listen to somebody who has had lived experience within that particular community than to listen to somebody who has not had at least one day of lived experience within that community.